Hey, everybody, it's the Wednesday night, August 18th. Is it the 18th?
It's the 19th.
It's the 19th. My goodness. Hey, the summer is slipping away on us here, and it's
Labor Day is coming up.
Labor Day is coming up. I saw a few bits of foliage on my walk on the rail trail this morning into Goffstown
Lawn
Village.
signs are appearing.
Lawn signs are appearing. They're up
along
everywhere.
the sides of the roads. And
We have not much more time to go before the New Hampshire primary election in early September. I think it's September 8th, and
yep.
that's not that
First
far
Monday
off.
after the first Tuesday after the first Monday, which is
Yep.
why it's
And I have
Not
to
the
tell you
first.
that I'm very pleased to be here with you on the progress report with my good friend Mike Farley, who's beside me, and it's always a pleasure to have him.
I'm beside myself too. So
He's beside himself. And we are just the two of us here, but we are expecting pretty soon to welcome in Dan Feltus, the Senate Majority Leader and one of the two major candidates for the Democratic primary nomination to contest for the seat of the governor against John Sununu, which will be a heavy lift for either one of them.
I think it's Chris Sununu that you meant.
Chris Sununu is what I meant. Jeez, I'm sorry.
Who's that? Dan saying he won't make it.
Hope not. Oh, let me get rid of this. I'm sorry about that, folks. Not very professional. Okay. Anyhow, we're going to start off with just the two of us. We hope you can handle that for a bit.
You can
As
call
al-
in and help us out too.
You can call in and help us out. We always welcome that.
640-3091.
Absolutely right. That's what it's been for a long time. And we hope you will partake of that, because we don't like to just be two talking heads here. We'd rather have people talking who are not talking heads, because we can't see you. But we still appreciate your participation. So, Mike, you got something you want to start off on? Or
Well,
do you-
I have a couple topics I wanted to talk about. One of them is masks. We're sitting here. We've dropped our masks. We're maybe a little closer than 6 feet, but we're trying to maintain some distance. And we wipe down the surfaces when we get here, and we wipe them down before we leave, and everything. And we're being as careful as possible. But I was kind of disappointed with the dialogue that took place at City Hall. We didn't have a show last week, but 2 weeks ago at City Hall, I just want to kind of hammer home one topic. It's very clearly been stated by all of the top medical people in the government, people in President Trump's own coronavirus task force, the people that we've seen, Fauci, Birx, the head of the CDC, and they basically said that if everyone, and they'll even give a little bit and say if 95% of the people in this country would wear a mask for the next 4 weeks, 70,000 people could be saved from death. Now that alone, regardless of what you believe, whether you're left or right, I mean, if someone came to me with the proposition, Mike, if for 4 weeks you wear a mask, 70,000 people will be saved, I'm all in for that. I don't understand why people aren't volunteering for that.
Yep.
So, I don't want to get in the back and forth. I could. It's fun to get in the back and forth about the science of it. I've heard people saying the masks are to protect other people. The masks are protect where it baloney. The point being that we will save 70,000 lives if all of us get on board with this. So come on, man. Volunteer for this life-saving project. That's just trying to make a pitch. But it looks like our guest is here, and
Our
we'll
guest
take a
is here.
quick break.
We'll take a quick break because we have a guest we're very much looking forward to talking to. That's Dan Feltus, Senate Majority Leader, candidate for governor. We'll have a quick break. Come on in, Dan. Okay, we're back, and as promised and very timely, here is Dan Feltus, one of the hardest working people I've ever met to hold elective office. A relentless
Oh, that's saying
doer.
something, Bob,
It
because
is
you've got the biggest Rolodex in the world, so that's really saying
Well,
something.
I have never heard anybody, and has met anybody who worked harder to master so many issues and take on so many leadership roles as Dan Feltus. And this was recognized when he was elevated at the age of a mere pup to be the Senate Majority Leader in this last session. And he's long ago declared that he wanted to be the governor of New Hampshire. And I have to say, I think he richly deserves to have that opportunity. Dan, I could introduce you a little more, but I'd like you to introduce yourself and tell us a little about your background and, what made you get into politics and what made you seek the highest office we have to offer in the state right now.
Right. Well,
Background first, Dan, though. Let's get personal.
yeah.
Tell
Why
us
don't,
about
why don't we get
yourself as a
personal?
person.
Look. I live in the south end of Concord on Hope Avenue with wonderful wife Erin, our two amazing daughters Iris
believe in an avenue
and
called
Josie.
Hope.
Yeah, I live on it. It's right there. I can see. Two amazing daughters, Iris and Josie. Iris just turned 3. Josie turns 2, coming up here in a month. And also in our household is our 2 dogs, Franklin and Roosevelt. And certainly have a much different background and perspectives than the current governor. My dad wasn't governor. My brother wasn't a U.S. senator. I was never gifted a ski resort. My dad worked in a furniture factory for 45 years, the same furniture factory, doing roughly the same job, day in and day out in an unair-conditioned furniture factory. My mom, part-time jobs, including the night shift, while raising 4 kids. And right out of law school, as Bob knows, I didn't take a job at like a corporate law firm. I took a job in legal aid, New Hampshire legal assistance.
Reminds me of another politician who's making a speech tonight,
Oh
Barack
yeah,
Obama.
that's true.
Well, I know about legal aid, but he became a community organizer. He didn't go from Harvard Law School to, a prestigious big city, New York, Washington law firm.
That's right.
He went out to help people at the community level, and that's what legal aid lawyers do, too.
Absolutely. We're out in the community. That's what I did for about a decade, helping to organize communities, organize tenants, combat housing discrimination, fight against Wall Street banks who were foreclosing on folks all around New Hampshire during the last economic crisis, the Great Recession, helping working people and working families crushed by job loss and get access to health care, unemployment insurance. Did that for about a decade and saw so many of the people that are falling through the cracks then are falling through the cracks right now in COVID. No doubt about it. And the reason I ran for the state senate to begin with in 2014, Bob, is the prospect of bigger, broader change and helping even more people. And that's why Erin encouraged me to do it. That's why I did it. We won 3 terms now as majority leader. Been fighting every step of the way for working people and working families. We've gotten a lot done working together, but all too often bumped up against Chris Sununu and his record-setting 79 vetoes.
The big veto pen, yeah.
65 of which had bipartisan support. And that kind of approach, it's no wonder he calls himself, in his own words, a Trump guy through and through, unquote. Those are his words. Believe him. And so if we're going to move forward as a state, we're going to get out of this mess in a way that looks out for working people and families, we're going to have a change. I'm not running to be governor. I'm running to serve as governor to look out for working people and working families.
Dan, can I bring you back a little bit to your legal aid background? That's an area in New Hampshire that I'll state my opinion, I think is sorely lacking.
Yeah.
There is such a need. I saw an article in the paper today about the need for better legal representation for juveniles in our court
Yeah,
system.
that was really telling, wasn't it?
Could you comment on, and I think you could take it from legal aid to a lot of the services that states typically offer
Yeah.
to their citizens here. And here in New Hampshire,
Absolutely.
we throw up a skeleton force. Can you talk about, the need to have more robust services such as legal aid?
Sure thing. Look, I'll take you right back to the last major economic crisis, the Great Recession. When I was serving as a legal aid lawyer, then actually New Hampshire legal assistance budget got slashed by Bill O'Brien and DJ Betancourt, who now serves as policy advisor for Governor Sununu. And I saw about 2/3 of my colleagues lose their jobs at a time when the need was greatest, at a time when people needed help with unemployment insurance and job training and fighting Wall Street banks for closing on folks and access to health care and basic needs for them and their family, at a time when so many people had no one in their corner. They needed somebody in their corner. And to me, that's what this is all about. And that's what this race is all about. Making sure ordinary people have someone in their corner in the corner office. That's what this is all about. And we're at such a critical moment right now. We're seeing it playing out on the ground. I mean, legislation that Bob and I worked on to make sure that homeowners had some protection in COVID-19 and renters have some protection, vetoed by Chris Sununu. Paid family and medical leave insurance, a bill I sponsored, Bob worked on, a bunch of us worked on, vetoed by Chris Sununu. PPE for small businesses, vetoed. Nursing home support, vetoed. And no school reopening plan. None. And, Aaron and I have 2 young kids. We got a lot of friends with working families that are just don't know what's going on from one day to the next. So much uncertainty. With 5 or so weeks to go before school reopened. All people wanted, all teachers wanted, all people wanted on the ground was some semblance of certainty, public health standards and support. And all Chris Sununu delivered was chaos on schools. Just like Trump, he punted it down. And like I said, it's no wonder he calls himself a Trump guy through and through. He's acting like it a whole heck of a lot lately. And you know what? Working people deserve better. People on the ground deserve better. Working people and working families deserve someone in their corner in the corner office. And each and every day I wake up, that's what I've been doing as a state senator. That's what I've been doing as a legal aid lawyer. That's what I'll do in the corner office too.
It's interesting. We look around and we have some Republican governors who are getting wide approval from constituencies across their states. I think of Governor Baker. I think of Governor Scott in Vermont and Governor Hogan in Maryland particularly. And Governor Chris Sununu does not fit into that bill.
No.
I mean, he just doesn't. And yet nonetheless, he seems to have a degree of popularity, which I think, can be attributed to the fact that he's gotten so much so-called earned media, which is actually an interesting phrase because it's media you don't have to pay for. It comes to you because the office you hold and the conditions there. I mean, he's been able to dominate that for during the course of this pandemic and his briefings on the situation in New Hampshire. So how are you going to deal with that?
Well, certainly, Bob, Chris Sununu likes his press conferences and his photo ops, but it's about what's going on the ground, the problems people are facing. It's not about press conferences, it's about problems.
Yeah.
And it's about what are you doing to look out for people.
Yeah.
And every campaign's about the future and how you're going to plan for the future and look out for people. We've released a whole bunch of plans about how we're going to look out for ordinary people in COVID-19. And that's what this is going to be about. And so, look, Feltus isn't a household name. In my house it is, but we'll get.
Well, you're going to make it a household name.
We're going to make it a household name, and we'll just work hard, and that's all I've ever done, as you mentioned, and we'll work hard in this campaign and reach people and elevate the voices of people who are being left out and left behind. That's what this is all about to me.
Yeah, very good. I noticed today there was a big headline in the Union Leader, probably in the other papers around the state too, that the state has gone along with some reinstatement of the supplemental unemployment insurance compensation, including a deal that apparently was worked out between Governor Sununu and the administration to use some of our unemployment funds to do a match for for what the federal government was offering under the
There were
Trump
strings
administration.
attached to that $400.
Yeah, and
One
I
of them
wanted,
was
I wanted to get
$100.
your take on that. I mean, is that something that you think should be approved, or are there things we're not seeing there that look real problem?
Well, I read the article, but I don't know all the details of this. But the reality is that Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump are holding up real relief effort at the federal level, and this can and should be part of it. So these kind of one-off settlements and agreements don't make a whole heck of a lot of sense. You got to have another big bill to help out people on the ground, help out workers on the ground. And I happen to believe that enhanced unemployment insurance is critical. It's critical for landlords all around the state, the renters who have been laid off. It's critical for people to save their homes. It's critical for families to make ends meet. And you just don't cut off unemployment insurance, have no housing protections, and just expect that everything's going to be okay.
Well, the deadline came, so.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Let me ask you a little bit. Let's talk about unemployment. New Hampshire has literally pathetic unemployment insurance.
Yeah.
It if you don't make a lot of money, you get nothing. And if you are in a situation where you make a reasonable amount and you've built a life around it, that life collapses if you get unemployed, because New Hampshire just doesn't sustain it. The numbers are just too low. With the $600, it became a livable situation.
Right.
Could you comment a little bit about your take on New Hampshire's policy for unemployment? I mean, this is a trust fund that gets built up over time. Talk about how we could do better.
No doubt about it. I mean, the tiers haven't been increased. The unemployment insurance benefit tiers, weekly benefit tiers, haven't been increased across the board in over 20 years. Well, just shy of 20 years. And we also have something in New Hampshire called the waiting week, which means even though you lost your job and you're otherwise eligible for unemployment insurance benefits, you don't get benefits that first week. Well, bills don't wait a week. Bills pile up in that week. And in New Hampshire, you have to wait. And so I put forward legislation, and Bob worked on it too, and we got it through Senate Bill 146 a couple of years ago. Chris Sununu vetoed it. We put forward legislation this year to deal with unemployment insurance benefits. Chris Sununu vetoed it. That's House Bill 1166. Time and time again, Chris Sununu is not siding on the side of workers and working families. And this has been a problem for, our unemployment insurance benefits have been a problem for some time. We've been working on it for a long time in different contexts as a legal aid lawyer and in the state Senate. And, and as a legal aid lawyer, the first piece of legislation I helped to advocate on was with then State Senator Maggie Hassan to extend unemployment insurance to part-time workers, disproportionately women, caretakers, who were otherwise eligible for unemployment insurance benefits, but when they were laid off because they were only available for part-time work because of caretaking and other responsibilities, they didn't get any unemployment insurance benefits. And we got that
what's
through.
The policy? I mean, when people here in New Hampshire, we write good laws because we want to promote good policy. What's the policy about not paying someone for a week, or not paying a working mom because she can't work full time? What's the policy benefit that we as people of the state get from that?
Well, I mean, it depends.
I'm being very facetious. I hope you.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you, and I mean, I'm certainly there would be some on the far right who would make some arguments there, but the upshot is this: is our unemployment insurance benefits are among the lowest in the nation. The recipiency rate, which means those of likely eligible that receive it, is one of the lowest in the nation, so we got to clean it up and we got to fix it. And we saw during this last crisis that Chris Sununu expanded unemployment insurance benefits on paper, but not in practice. He didn't update the computer system, and so many people are falling through the cracks and waiting weeks.
We've still got National Guard answering the phones over there.
Yeah.
I mean, they still haven't fully recovered from that rollout.
No, they haven't. And Bob, you mentioned when we talk about workers and we talk about surrounding governors. Bob, you had mentioned Baker and Scott, and you may have seen recently Chris Sununu deviated from Governor Baker and Governor Scott by actually advocating for corporate immunity for big corporations who put their workers at risk during COVID-19.
Oh yeah.
Governor Baker and Governor Scott didn't sign on to the Republican from Massachusetts, Republican from Vermont didn't sign on to that. Chris Sununu did.
That's a big deal.
That's
Can
a big
you
deal.
kind of tease that out? Because I think that might fly under people's radar when they hear it. When I hear it, to me, that is probably the biggest bailout that can possibly be. And I'm thinking especially these factory workers that are coming back without any consideration of their health.
Yeah. If you believe in worker safety, which, by the way, is public safety, especially in COVID-19, workers should be protected, and they should have a safe working environment. And corporations and CEOs should provide that. And if they put their workers at risk, right now, workers can have recourse.
Yeah.
But what Chris Sununu wants is workers have no recourse, basically.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal.
Yeah. It'd be like the gun lobby, which has managed to get themselves immunity against any suits for anything. I mean, it's just astonishing, the power of that lobby. And this is where so many Republicans want to go. They talk about liability protection. What's that really mean? It really means that ordinary
Injured
people
people
don't have
can't-
recourse to the courts when they've been injured as a result of somebody else's negligence
Yep.
or deliberate conduct. And that's un-American, I think. And I didn't know that was part of the case here, but it's certainly something glad to hear you stand against. Something we do care a lot about, you and I, Dan, is moving New Hampshire forward in clean energy
Yep.
and energy efficiency. And we've had a real roadblock with the governor and his vetoes on that front. And I just saw you were over in the western part of the state, I think in Keene, celebrating, and that's a place, it's a great part of our state and very progressive on many issues, including renewable energy. Talk a little bit about what your policy would be on that.
Sure, Bob. Well, we released a clean energy plan called Green Jobs, Green Future, which builds off of a lot of the work we've done together. Not unsurprising. A lot of the bills that were vetoed, 14 clean energy pieces of legislation have been vetoed. We've gotten a few through, bills I prime sponsored, community solar, community aggregation. We got those through, but by and large, they've been vetoed. And let me just give you a sense of where this current governor comes from. When he vetoed Senate Bill 168 to ramp up new solar in the short term 7 times, a bill I filed and Bob worked on, when he vetoed that, he actually said, Chris Sununu said in his veto statement, this amounts to, and I'm paraphrasing, crony capitalism for the solar industry, literally. And I said on the Senate floor on veto override day, I said, look, I respectfully disagree with the use of that kind of language in an official government document, but since you mentioned it, we'll mention that your brother is a lobbyist for the fossil fuel industry.
Yeah.
And you're closely associated with an Orwellian-named group called New England Ratepayers Association,
Yep.
which, as far as we know, is fueled by fossil fuel interests.
Right.
And they lobbied against it. So if anything fits the definition of crony capitalism, that veto from Sununu does.
Yeah.
And that is what we're up against.
Yeah.
So if you believe in clean energy, you got to vote for a change. Chris Sununu's running for a 3rd term, and he's a singular obstacle for so many things,
Yeah.
particularly clean energy. And Bob, this is critical, especially in COVID-19, because so many people are out of work. And these are the jobs of tomorrow in clean energy.
And they can't be outsourced.
The
And they
local
can't
jobs,
be
yeah.
outsourced, and they're local jobs.
You can't have somebody from China come to put your solar panels on.
No way. And so these are jobs right here in the Granite State.
Yeah.
We have a caller?
Oh,
Sure, let's
sure.
take
Good
a
time to
call.
let's take a call and have them join
Hi,
the
caller.
conversation.
We hope you're still with us. We're glad to welcome you to the show. If you've got a question or a comment for us or our guest, please go right ahead. Hello?
Hello.
Yeah, you're on the air. Go right
Yeah,
ahead.
I see you guys trashing Governor Sununu. Could you explain how he has 60% approval rate? Thank you.
Good point.
Well, I think he does a slightly better job at press conferences than Donald Trump. And so, but look, it's not about the poll numbers. It's about the problems on the ground. And that's what I'm focused on, and that's what I'll continue to focus on. What are working people and working families going through right now? And they're being left out and left behind. And we got a governor who's not looking out for them. I will each and every step of the way.
You know, one place that really makes me, what you just said triggers in me is the fact that despite the enormous efforts made by so many, New Hampshire still does not have a paid family and medical leave
We don't
provision.
even have a minimum wage.
We have a governor, and tell me if I'm wrong about this. A governor called that we're going to pay people for going on vacation. Did he actually say that? And what's the truth about that? And what would you do about that?
Well, in terms of paid family and medical leave insurance, that's so critical for working families. People who have kids. Aaron and I were fortunate with Iris and Josie that she had paid family leave, and we were out of session, and so we were able to spend time with our daughters. Not every family.
And you still
can.
spent many hours at the State House with the younger one strapped to your.
Yeah, Iris. We didn't have daycare for a while, so Iris.
Iris
I brought Iris.
was in the State House with you a lot. It was quite
She was,
something to
yeah.
see.
That was a lot of fun, but it's a challenge that working families face. It's an issue of attracting and retaining young workers too. It's also an issue about combating the opioid epidemic, the number one cited reason why people do not get into an intensive inpatient treatment program is because they're worried about their job, and they're worried about their economic security of taking time away. Paid family and medical leave insurance helps with that. It also helps with COVID-19. and it helps with our caretaking crisis. So many of our parents and grandparents aging in place need caretaking. That's what paid family and medical leave insurance is all about. So Chris Sununu opposes paid family and medical leave insurance. He's vetoed it twice. He auctioned off a copy of one of his vetoes of paid family and medical leave insurance at a partisan political fundraiser to the highest bidder. And then he proceeded to auction off the U.S. flag and the New Hampshire flag flown over the State House the day he vetoed paid family and medical leave insurance. And not once, not twice, but 3 different times he actually called it a vacation.
Yeah.
And so
But
I think that reflects, if I may, someone who's never had to need paid family and medical leave insurance.
Right.
It reflects the perspective of someone, quite frankly, who was gifted a ski resort. And ordinary folks need it. And we value work and we value family. We should value the proposition. You shouldn't have to choose between the two, if at all possible.
I didn't mean to interrupt, but
Right, yeah.
this is it is insurance. It's paid for. This isn't free anything.
No.
The employee gets a very small amount taken out of their check. The way Massachusetts rolled it out, they started collecting the fund about 6 to 8 months before they rolled out the benefits, so that they were able to build up a fund. I mean, of course, they have more resources than we do, so we'd have to do it the New Hampshire way. But this isn't a free anything. People are investing in their ability to take care of their dying mother if they need to.
Or spouse or child or whatever, yeah.
And the way it was structured is businesses had options for how to do it. There was not even a required tax in the piece of legislation. It was just a requirement all workers have access. So businesses could provide it directly. They could work with other businesses to provide it. They could go on the open market. They could do some combination thereof, or they could do the addendum to unemployment insurance, as you mentioned. So there's plenty of options. And there's, we got over 200 businesses in New Hampshire in support of it. And we had bipartisan support in the legislature for it, and bipartisan co-sponsors. But still, Chris Sununu vetoed it. And so if you want to move forward on paid family and medical leave insurance, we got to win this race.
Yeah, we certainly do. And I'm sure on the other issues that pertain to this sort of relationship of the employees to their jobs in New Hampshire, I'm sure you would be advocating for New Hampshire at last getting back to having a minimum wage and not the miserly $7.25 an hour that we default to, because we don't have a minimum wage, and that's the federal minimum wage, which I think has not been increased since, 1993?
We're a New
Something like
England
that?
state. Our cost of living is not the same as you might
Right.
get in a Mississippi, where the federal minimum wage might have more impact. I mean,
Yeah.
it's ridiculous.
It is, and you got so many people working hard and living in poverty. And a lot of these folks are on the front lines right now. Grocery store workers, other folks on the
Yeah.
front lines. They're doing whatever it takes, no matter the risk, to keep this state and this country afloat. And they ought to be treated with respect. The dignity of work should be rewarded. I support reinstating the minimum wage and raising it on a gradual basis to 15, similar to what was voted on in Congress. We need to move forward with that. We need to treat workers with respect. And again, this is a what's at stake moment in our state and nation's history. Are we going to look out for working people and working families as we move forward? Or are we going to look out for corporations and big corporations and corporate special interests? Literally, that's what's at stake in this race.
Yeah. Very good. What about some of the issues pertaining to environmental protection and climate action that doesn't seem to be getting much attention from the executive branch in Concord? What are your plans there?
Well, first and foremost, I believe that we should do what Rhode Island and others in New England have done, which is take on the fossil fuel industry for their responsibility in causing climate change and hurting New Hampshire and hurting our seacoasts. That's well-established litigation that other states are pursuing. There's no reason New Hampshire shouldn't do it either.
Yeah.
Create a dedicated fund and try to remediate some of the coastal consequences and the consequences around the state. That's one thing that we put in our clean energy plan, Green Jobs, Green Future. Take a look at it online. But then we got to build off of all the things that we worked on. In addition to that, we need to make sure that we move forward and rapidly deploy the Volkswagen settlement money to have electric charging stations up and down our highway. It's not just about combating the climate crisis. It's about if someone's in Massachusetts and they have an electric vehicle and they're figuring out where to spend their money on the weekend, and Maine's doing it, New Hampshire isn't, where are they going to go? They're going to go to Maine, and we lose out. And we lose out on revenue right here in New Hampshire. So combating the climate crisis, creating good jobs right here in New Hampshire, and reducing bills, electric bills. And we need to do that. And the reality is that Chris Sununu's vetoes of clean energy legislation has resulted in your bills going up. Don't let him say anything different. The highest driver is regional transmission costs allocated to New Hampshire. And that equation is driven by our peak demand in New Hampshire relative to surrounding states.
Yep.
And when surrounding states invest in energy efficiency and solar and distributed generation, they're shaving their peak demand. We're not, and they're eating our lunch on rates.
That's like when they call for volunteers and everybody steps back. You're left holding the bag.
Exactly. That's perfect.
You know, one of the things that seems to be a real there's so many problems. I don't know which one to go to next. Let's talk about the education problem in
Yep.
New Hampshire. You know, we've wrestled with education funding, you know, for decades now, since the first Claremont decision and many subsequent decisions on the issue of educational funding. Your primary opponent's been very much associated with that. I was kind of surprised to see that the other day he apparently said that he did not think that we were underfunding education overall in New Hampshire. I guess his point is we're just not allocating that burden fairly, which is certainly true. But what's your take on what we need to do? And if you want to talk about it, what's your take on what we should do to meet the issue of opening schools in the midst of this pandemic?
Well, first on school funding generally, and then next to the pandemic, I disagree with Councilor Valinsky. I don't think we spend the right amount on our schools. And that's what he said the other day. I think we should spend more on our schools. That's why in this last budget, Bob, working together, we secured $140 million in new education funding for our local schools, including disparity aid for property poor schools.
Senator D'Alessandro came on the show and just propounded on that
Yep.
for quite
We
a
worked.
bit.
We worked together. Senator D'Alessandro and I worked together a lot. He's the chair of the Finance Committee. I'm the vice chair. I'm the chair of Ways and Means. He's the vice chair of Ways and Means. And as majority leader, working together, Democrats put together a budget that looked out for property taxpayers and looked out for education. Sununu vetoed it, eventually ended up accepting it, and then he wrote a letter to superintendents of schools saying, I consider it one-time funding. Well, look, we got to protect that budget and build off of it. If Chris Sununu gets a rare third term in office, let's be blunt, he's going backwards on education funding. We got to go forward, and we got to support our communities. And we did that in part, Bob, by closing loopholes for big corporations in our tax code. One of the biggest chunk of our state budget is business taxes and taxes for corporations.
Right.
And approximately, give or take, I have to look at recent numbers, but approximately 50% of businesses and corporations that either do business in New Hampshire or sell products or services into New Hampshire don't pay. Don't pay. And so we got to close those loopholes. And then invest in our communities, invest in education, invest in our people, invest in property tax relief. That's my view. I don't support, as Councilor Valinsky has for a long history, a broad-based income tax. I don't support a broad-based income tax. I feel like we got to close those loopholes for big corporations at the top to look out for workers, not whack them with a broad-based income tax. That's my view. I know other people have different views, but we have a progressive budget that we built, and we can build off of it. In terms of schools this fall, we put forward a plan, Bob. Live Free and Learn Safe is the name of it. We worked with public health experts, including former commissioner of HHS, Ned Helms. We put that together. It actually has public health standards, and it has support, including $100 million of CARES Act money that would go to our schools. Maine just devoted $165 million to their schools for school reopening. It has medical grade N95 masks for teachers. That's critical to protect teachers. By the way, the average teacher in New Hampshire spends $423 out of their own pocket to do their own job each year. They shouldn't be spending money out of pocket to be safe in schools to do their own job. So we need to protect teachers. 5 reusable cloth face covering for every student in the state. That's what North Carolina does. If North Carolina can do it, we should be able to do it.
We should be able to.
It protects people on the ground. It lays out a clear public health standards of what happens when a kid gets sick, what happens with buses, what happens with meals. And folks, with 5 or 6 weeks to go, Chris Sununu did none of that. And so local school districts and school boards and folks on the ground are grappling with this. And folks that step up to the plate for school board and otherwise, they're doing it out of a sense of public service. They're not epidemiologists. The state should set
There
forth
should be a
public health.
playbook that you can go to.
Absolutely.
And address the issues in your local district.
And the notion that what we hear is, well, local control this, it's not a matter of local control. It's about a matter of a governor who has failed to do his job. It's not like the virus changes from school district to school district. Put out some public health standards, support our schools. That's what we do in that plan, live free and learn safe. And that's part of what you need to do. In fact, we're the only candidate for governor to put out a school reopening plan, including the current governor. And that's part of doing the job. And so we need to look out for our families and our communities right now. There's so much uncertainty on the ground, and this governor is failing to do his job.
Okay. I suggest, Mike, if it's okay with you, we take a short break.
It's always good to regroup and figure
It's
out where
always
we're going to
good.
go next.
Let's
so.
take a
You got
short
it.
break, folks, and please do call in. We'd love to hear from you, whether you're pro or con on Dan Feltus or got a particular issue, whichever you want.
Or you want to defend Sununu.
You
We'll
want
take that call, too.
you want to defend Governor Sununu? We'll handle that too. 640-3091, and we will be right back. Hey, everybody, this is the edition of the Progress Report for this Wednesday, August 19th already, as the summer moves along. And when we leave here, it's going to be pretty dark out. You know, it was so nice to leave this studio.
Man,
drive
it's
home with the sun still out.
Don't give up on it yet, Bob.
No,
I think
no,
it's going to be just fine.
I noticed a few red leaves and some of the shrubs and things. Anyway, we are here with a terrific candidate and a hardworking New Hampshire State Senator, indeed the majority leader in the New Hampshire State Senator, Dan Feltus, who will be on the ballot on September 8th as one of the choices for the Democratic nomination for governor to be the opponent for the incumbent governor, Chris Sununu, in November. I think Dan is going to win that election, and I'm certainly proud to be one of his supporters, although I certainly admire his opponent as a very fine person as well. But we are talking about the issues with him, and again, please call in if you have an issue you'd like to bring up, or challenge Dan on, he's ready for any of that.
Most dangerous hour on public TV.
Yeah, we
You
prove
never
that
know what's
occasionally
gonna
when we get to embarrass ourselves here, don't we? Let's start a little bit about talking about the campaign, how your campaign is doing, and I see you do have ads up. I'm glad
Yep.
to see that.
Yep.
So you're obviously not failing in the fundraising department because those ads are expensive.
Right.
Showing up on my computer too.
And
Good.
just tell us about the campaign and what the campaign's going to be doing for the remaining days till the primary, and then on to the general.
Well, thanks, Bob and Mike. Well, look, we're continuing to build a big, broad coalition. We got the support of Bob, over 100 state reps, the speaker, the deputy speaker, the majority leader, the chair of the House Progressive Caucus, 10 state senators, 15 labor unions, Steve Marchand, Molly Kelly, Colin Van Osteren, wonderful groups like End Citizens United, recognizing my leadership on campaign finance reform. And even though we have the resources in this race, it's been a big grassroots effort. We don't take any corporate money, corporate PAC money, or LLC money in this race. We've led the charge on campaign finance reform at the State House, and Bob and I, we've been able to get some stuff through. There's a whole bunch more that we need to do to reform the system so that the system works out for ordinary people. So we continue to build this broad coalition, continue to get all the support that we can, including like-minded independents and Republicans. We have a big campaign going here, and we continue to reach out to people as best we can. And that's what we'll continue to do. And for those at home, I respectfully ask for your vote and your support. You can go online, danfeltusnh.com, and join the team.
Yeah, it would be great.
You swung into campaign finance in your response there, and that's a big issue. And Citizens United is a goal for all of us. What's your ultimate goal for campaign finance? Is it publicly financed elections? Is it limiting individual donors? Is it taking corporate money out? Where would you like to land on that issue?
Well, there's a whole bunch of reforms that we need to do, and we put forward a plan on that too, called the People's Plan. So you can go on our website and take a look at it. But the upshot of it, Mike, is banning corporate contributions, making schedules public. I think that's important. Matter of transparency.
Corporate campaign contributions were already illegal.
They're not.
They're not?
They're not.
Oh,
I was
okay.
gonna say, Bob would have ran again. No, I'm just kidding.
I thought the campaign contributions had to come through corporate offices, individuals, not through the corporations themselves.
Corporate contributions are not banned in New Hampshire. So that's one of the things that we need to do.
I want to go back to calendars, and
sure.
because I don't want to miss that. So what that would be is someone who's elected has to make their calendar public, so you know when they're meeting with the rich guys that are donating to their campaigns.
Well, I would promise as governor to make my schedule public and be transparent about that. And we are actually the only candidate for governor, in addition to that has released his or her tax returns. I think that's important. No other candidate for governor in this race has released their tax returns. So it's not just Washington, D.C. that's broken, it's Concord that's broken, quite frankly.
We have very, very weak reporting laws here in New Hampshire for campaigns. They're very weak.
They're
toothless.
They're pretty weak, and certainly we got to ban no bid contracts too. We're seeing that practice be used, in fact, by the current governor, Chris Sununu, and in fact, a lot of corporate campaign contributors have gotten COVID-19 relief money and opioid treatment money out of no-bid contracts from this governor. We should ban no-bid contracts. It needs to be a competitive process. We need to keep our eye on the bottom line for taxpayers, and having a competitive process makes good sense. So these are a whole host of reforms that we need to undertake to make sure that we continue to look out for ordinary people. It's always about that. And if you make those reforms, we can continue to move government in a way that looks out for working people and working families.
One of the issues that I think is most compelling to me is the issue of, we have a lot of single parents, mostly women, not always, but mostly women, who are really struggling in low-end jobs. Yeah. And the thing that really is appalling to me is the limited amount of daycare to help these people be able to get to those jobs, particularly when we're in this COVID crisis and we need, healthcare workers and nurses' aides in our nursing homes and congregate care facilities. And that's something that I just think is a desperate need that is not
Yeah.
being met. And maybe you've got a plan for that too and can talk about that. How would you help these people who are working very low wages, doing essential work? We now know I think we have a different definition of essential workers than we used to. Turns out the hedge fund managers may not be all that essential as we thought they were.
Exactly.
And the grocery store clerks and the nurses' aides and the nursing homes are.
Yep.
So would you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, and I agree on your definition of essential worker. And look, child care right now in the state there's a lack of supply. And we're living this, Aaron and I, with, Iris and Josie, and, if there's some symptoms now in COVID-19 and Iris had a runny nose and, both Iris and Josie were out for a period of time. And that impacts families. That impacts the daycare centers too. So we got to support child care on the ground. Here's a number of things that we have talked about. Number one is making sure that they're supported in COVID-19 with all the different rules and social distancing and all the different requirements in child care centers. They need additional financial support to stay afloat. Number two, we need to make sure that we recruit the workers to do the job, and that includes debt forgiveness for child care workers.
Mm-hmm.
Number three, we need to make sure that we partner up with our community college system and the pipeline of these workers in a way that also provides child care opportunities statewide. And I'm thinking about, for example, the NHTI Child and Family Development Center, which was a great partnership. It's changing now, but that model could be expanded upon. So those are just some of the ideas to advance child care. A last idea that we could do is certainly something that's been floating around the legislature for a while that I sponsored. We never got it through, though, was a child independent care property tax credit. So we if you have child care expenses or dependent care expenses, we already have a property tax credit for low to moderate income families in New Hampshire. It needs to be expanded. But doing a property tax credit for child and dependent care, if you're caring for a senior, if you're caring for a loved one, or you have child care expenses, you ought to be able to afford to stay in your home and take care of your family. So those are just some ways to look out for working families. But you're absolutely right, Bob. This is something that is hitting a disparate impact on working families, disproportionate impact on women. It's a gender equity issue. And as we talk about how we get out of this mess in a way that works for ordinary people in COVID-19, childcare and daycare needs to be a key part of it. And it's a key part of our economy. And if you value work, you value family, you should value affordable childcare availability. And we hear it from our business leaders too.
We have another caller, or at least we did. I hope the caller's still there on the line. We'll give it a shot. Caller, you're live on the Progress Report. Go right ahead.
Hi, Mike. Hi, Bob. Hi, Dan.
Hey, how
Phil.
you doing?
How are you, Phil?
Good to hear from you.
I'm well. How are you guys doing? Oh, thank you.
Surviving.
Yeah, right. We're all trying to. Hey, I call as a Andrew supporter in the primary, but I want to make a couple points. I am impressed with the governor's leadership with the COVID. So I'm an Andrew supporter. I'm impressed with the governor's leadership with the COVID situation. But I also want to say that I'm impressed with your guest. And I really do appreciate a lot of his views and his, service and a lot of the things that he said. So all of those things being said, I get the three-pronged stool there. My hope is that even though I'm going to vote for Andrew, and I appreciate the governor, and I think your guest is awesome, my hope is that we can all just work together, especially through these difficult times, and come together and figure out how we're going to move forward. And if your guest is the nominee for the Democratic Party, I will certainly be behind him, and I will certainly hold a sign, make a donation, and get out there and knock on doors and get things going. But I really do think Governor Sununu has been upfront, available, and really done a nice job. And my hope is that we can all just come together as a community, Manchester, New Hampshire, the country, whatever it may be, and let's just beat this thing and move forward. So, and thank you guys for your great work.
No, thanks, Phil. Great
Phil.
sentiment.
Appreciate that.
Appreciate the call.
Well, Phil, I look forward to persuading you to vote for Feltus in the primary. Vote for us in the primary. We need you. And you're absolutely right, Phil. I mean, I share that fundamental belief. We're all in this together. We have worked together on a whole host of things. And I do fundamentally believe, Phil, and everybody listening, that the barrier to bipartisan progress at the State House is Chris Sununu. Like I said, of that 79 vetoes, 65 of which had bipartisan support. And we're talking things that are critical in COVID-19, too. So folks have worked together at the State House. And although, it may present a different image at these press conferences, the reality is that Chris Sununu is blocking bipartisan progress at the State House. And let me give you one concrete example beyond just COVID. Behavioral health, a piece of legislation that we passed last year to help Manchester. Senate Bill 5, directly help Manchester on opioid treatment and housing. Senate Bill 5, we got a 24-0 vote, Phil, in the state Senate. And we got a wonderful vote in the House, too. Went to Sununu's desk, he vetoed it. Again, we had bipartisan support and directly hit Manchester. We could have helped Manchester with that bill. Sununu vetoed it. And then when we had the veto override, unfortunately, at the request of Governor Sununu, Republican colleagues hung with him. And it's public now, but on veto override day, Chris Sununu said to the Republican caucus, your vote on veto override is not about the issues or your constituents. It's about me and protecting my vetoes. That's the antithesis of public service. That's opposite of that fundamental belief. We are all in this together. So, look, one thing on the press conference is another thing what actually happens. And so I think Chris Sununu is a barrier to bipartisan progress. That's a key reason why I'm running.
That's kind of that earned media that Bob was talking about. You know, I wanted to talk a little bit about the actual voting process, which is going to be a little bit of a challenge, but we're running out of time, and I want to reserve some time for Bob to remember a friend before we close the show. Yeah. But can you very quickly kind of just lay it out for us, the challenge and the obligation we all have to push it through to the finish line, make sure that our votes get in and get counted?
Sure thing. Look, anyone in New Hampshire who's a voter can vote by absentee. You can download the form. There are different websites to show you how to do that. Go to Secretary of State's website.
sos.nh.gov.
Bingo, you got it, Mike. And check the box for COVID-19 related concerns.
There is no box for COVID-19 related concerns. It is the disability box that you have to check, and that's why I wanted to have this conversation.
Okay, well, I believe that they recently changed the form.
Well, I'm glad to hear it, because when I sent mine in, they didn't have that box. So.
It was on the application, but it wasn't on the actual ballot.
Well, I beg to differ when I sent mine in, but I got out there early. But I don't
got out there early, but we passed this, Mike. We passed that legislation requiring that. So it probably changed prior to when you did it. So check that box if you haven't already. If you got it early, like Mike, you might have only had the disability box. But check the box, send it in. You can request a ballot for both the primary and the general all at once. That's critical. And get it in the mail and return it and follow the instructions and do it as quickly as possible. And you can also vote, drop it off at your city clerk's. You can go to the city clerk's office and do it right there.
Bring an ID. You have to have an ID if you hand it off in person.
Absolutely, and get it done. And so I would encourage everybody to do that sooner rather than later, and just setting aside that process and saying if you're voting, taking a Democratic ballot, I respectfully ask for your vote for governor on the Democratic side.
And nobody will work harder for you if you give him that opportunity, as I said at the beginning. Where was I going to go? I was thinking about the vetoes, and there were many that were very distressing, and it was way more than any prior veto record of any other governor in our history, way beyond. I think the record for 1 year was 15, and he had 57. Right. And now there's another, enough to make up to how's the total?
22.
70,
Yeah, 79.
79 vetoes, undoing an awful lot of hard work by many of us lavishly paid legislators in the Senate and the House here in the state of New Hampshire. But one of the things that most distressed me was his veto of the Independent Redistricting Commission. I mean, if we want to have a democracy, we got to have our votes have some equality of value.
Right.
We work so hard to get these votes, and now some people's votes count more than other. And I mean, it's just unconscionable to me that he would veto that bill that was worked so hard on. And I'm sure if you were governor, if that bill comes before you, there would be no veto. We would move forward with this. So it's not one party, as in 2010, one party had a big victory that year. It was the Republicans. They rigged the elections to benefit themselves for a decade. We're going to do it again this year. And unfortunately, it looks like we will not have a independent redistricting commission to get over the yin and the yang when the census comes up and the Democrats are in charge. They take advantage, and boy, do the Republicans take advantage. So I'm sure you're with me on that.
I am, no doubt. And this is one of the ones that had bipartisan support.
Very strong.
And a lot of people worked really hard on it. And it was vetoed twice by Governor Chris Sununu, vetoing an independent bipartisan redistricting commission. The basic concept that voters should pick their politicians, not the other way around,
Right.
is just common sense. And Chris Sununu disagrees.
Yeah.
And so after we win this primary and the general election, we will form a commission like the commission that was hopefully, like the commission that would have been signed into law, and we'll get that going and make sure that we move forward. And
classic example of good government on behalf of everybody,
Yep.
regardless of party.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, Dan, it's wonderful you come in and join us. We're
got
glad you could make it. It's
Thank
a
you very much
terrific
for coming
thing.
to talk with us.
And we're really appreciative that you got to be here. We wish you very good luck. I did want to mention, just as we're coming to the end, that for some of you here in Manchester, like me, I hope remember, as I do very fondly, my good friend Paul McEachern from Portsmouth, who just died after melanoma it attacked him, and he went downhill very rapidly and died yesterday or a couple of days ago, I guess. And he ran for governor 4 times. I think he was the nominee 3 times, if I'm not mistaken. He never became governor, but he did serve with great distinction in the House. He was a wonderful guy, a terrific lawyer. He's having a park named for him in Portsmouth, a Mill Pond Park, when he arranged for that pond and the land surrounding it to be conveyed to the city. And I'm told that in his final hours, which he was at home, he was able to look out his window and look at that park, and he knew that that park was going to be named for him. And so that must have been very satisfying. And we've lost a wonderful citizen in Paul McEachern, and I don't know how many people out here remember him, but I do, and I just wanted to say something because I don't think there's going to be any memorial service, given the changes that we're dealing with these days. So there we are, and folks, again, Dan, thanks, and good luck, and I wish you very, very good results. You'll make a terrific governor. I have no doubt about that. You've got all the right values and the ability to work hard on many, many issues. So we'll be back next week with another edition of the Progress Report, folks. And I thank our callers for participating, and have a great evening. Enjoy the Democratic National Convention, which I think is pretty good entertainment.
See you next week, folks.